Sneaky snarky little something. Meredith, girl, I do hope this is not the beginning of the end of your era on the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. And not to be dramatic, but I say that because fleeing from pretty much every opportunity to resolve conflict, instead resorting to rage and sorrow, has given the cast and viewers no way to move forward with her. And I really do like her, but everyone seems to be getting fed up with the delusions of persecution from Meredith. Sneaky snarky. And it's not without reason. She seems to always default to one of two gears. It's either throwing a dramatic tantrum to maximize chaos around her never-ending exit strategies, or second gear, she just resorts to meltdowns in which she positions herself as someone that is constantly targeted in this group. Cool. Do we need to find Angie's scroll to bring up your list of crimes in this group for you to realize that maybe, just maybe, you aren't always the victim of circumstance? Now, Meredith Marks has faced repeated accusations from her castmates of instigating conflict and avoiding accountability, often by deflecting or reframing situations to position herself as a victim. This pattern has been a recurring theme throughout season 5, with the other housewives frustrated by her tendency to stir the pot and then retreat. A prime example of this behavior occurred during a heated confrontation with Lisa Barlow. When tensions escalated, Meredith stormed out, later citing a past car accident as an emotional trigger, which many of the cast felt was a tactic to deflect from addressing the actual issues at hand. This move reinforced the perception that Meredith uses personal struggles to evade responsibility, exacerbating tensions and fueling accusations of manipulative behavior. And the pattern continued at Mary Cosby's highfalutin breakfast at Tiffany's themed meetup, where she ended up descending into yet another meltdown before storming out shortly after Angie cornered her about the whole gay husband rumor. And the thing is, not a single lie was told at that table. The back and forth to me really seems to center around the fact that Meredith does not want to own up to the fact that yes, she did threaten to slander Angie within an inch of her life, and we all saw some of that. The issue came when her weapon of choice was peddling a shocking rumor that Angie's husband, Sean, is secretly gay and has a plethora of boyfriends running their mouths all over town. Oh, Monica, look at the mess you left behind. I think Meredith's real issue lies in the fact that her shady move backfired. It's not 98 anymore. Insinuating that Angie is a beard, it's just not the read it used to be. It's problematic. Sean has not been letting up, and in a podcasts are the root of all evil on this show, mind you. He accused Meredith not only of planting the seed for these rumors to stir trouble, but also charged that Meredith defended herself by citing her advocacy for the LGBTQ plus community and mentioning her own gay son. Now, you can see why some people would perceive that as an opportunistic attempt at deflecting. Sean criticized her for leveraging her son's identity to shift the narrative, further complicating this whole overblown feud. Angie, meanwhile, has been deeply offended by the insinuations, labeling them as desperate attempts to damage her family. Meredith, ma'am, just own up to the fact that you were being very messy and tell them that it's because they've been very messy to you, that everyone here is messy, and so you took it to hell because you're about that life. And after that, wrap it up, girls. Speaking of Angie, she's mother. No, quite literally, because she relived the grief of her mom's passing when she was just 8 years old because she had been medicating with alcohol for quite some time back then. The emotions bubbled back up about how mad she still is at a mom for not getting better for her children. When I say I was sobbing at that scene, she also explained how she is super involved in her daughter's life now to stop that very same generational curse from continuing, and that she wants to give her daughter everything she never had. Interestingly, there's a parallel theme that is present in Mary Cosby's storyline, where she feels that she made up for her own mom's emotional unavailability in how she raised her son, Robert Jr., but now fears that she might have oversheltered him to where he became codependent. We'll talk about that, but for now, we need to talk about the Heather versus Bronwyn beef. It's pretty clear that the girls cannot stand each other at this point. Back at Mary Cosby's swanky breakfast, the two exchanged a number of swift swipes at each other, which started right away when Heather, throwing slick shade, thanked Mary Cosby for including all the girls at her event. Because that's not something we can say about some of the girls at this very table. The table had Gucci plates. Obviously, Heather's remarks were not so subtle in their invitation to get Bronwyn to sweat about why she, so new to the circle, would have the nerve to exclude Heather from the group trip. But before we get into the explosive confrontation that left Heather looking like she was grasping at straws next to her acolytes Lisa Barlow, I think it's interesting that during the episodes that were focused on Bronwyn's girls' vacation in Palm Springs, Heather's absence didn't seem to register Lisa that much, if at all. I wouldn't want that happening if I thought of myself as one of the lead personalities for the show, that a newbie can come in and outshine me so much that, number one, that she gets to leave me out in the eyes from one of the season's getaways, and two, she gets to drive so much drama and big moments that me not being here is barely noticeable. I get why she's fuming. But back at the Audrey Hepburn get together, Bronwyn denied the fact that she had in fact gone out of her way to cut Heather out of the trip. Bronwyn read her down. Again, dropping receipts that flights were booked for Heather despite the fallout just days prior. But Heather had other bones to pick with Bronwyn, which has come to be expected. Further to being iced out from the trip, she also brought up Bronwyn not having a prenup as some kind of a massive scandal. Again, and then proceeded to go after Bronwyn's husband, Todd, and his character based on what she heard from Lisa. Now, obviously because Lisa is livid because she and John were almost kicked out of the trip by Bronwyn and Todd. And then she ran to her bestie to say, guess what happened? And now Heather is trying to use that as ammunition too. Fortunately, Bronwyn stood on business, and when Heather took her to task for giving the girls crappy seats on the plane, Bronwyn had her know that, well, it's because I paid with my credit card, god damn it. Now, here's the thing. It's clear that Bronwyn is rubbing Lisa and Heather the wrong way, and I think it simply boils down to the fact that she's taken over the show. She came into the circle and has taken charge of the group's dynamics at this point, and she's easily able to back it up because the money is long. Just in terms of group psychology, I do think Bronwyn being a rookie who outshines them both probably and clearly doesn't sit well with them. It does not help that Bronwyn stays on their necks, calling out their nonsense without fear of being iced out by the group, simply because she has studied the dynamics and has realized where the power lies and how to work it. Which, by the way, she does sort of hint to when being the first one to arrive at Mary Cosby's fancy breakfast, noting that she's usually fashionably late, not disrespectfully late, but that she wasn't about to risk being neither at Mary's event. And that moment was kind of foreshadowed in the very first episode when we got introduced to Bronwyn and she immediately connected with Mary over style and taste. That girl knows what's up. The saving grace for Heather and Lisa would definitely be if Todd wants Bronwyn to leave the show. And we've talked about this, but there are early signs that Todd thinks the show is beneath Bronwyn, and in the latest episode he goes on to express his disapproval of the circle. Now, there are many ways of reading the situations and the dynamic of their relationship. Some people are pointing out that Todd has so far come across as too uptight and controlling in a way that gives a father-daughter dynamic thanks to the age difference and the gap in financial muscle. But on the other hand, maybe he really just wants what's best for his family and sees the show as pure garbage. This viewer wondered what Bronwyn said when pitching the idea for them to participate on the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, tweeting, Bronwyn absolutely pitched the show to Todd as a classy and thought-provoking documentary series. I can see it, because why is he so bewildered at everyone's behavior, down to shading Lisa and John's tequila as mediocre in a hot mic? Remains to be seen how things play out, but one can't help wonder if, iconic as she's been, Bronwyn would end up being at risk of being a one-season wonder. Let's move on to Mary Cosby, who schooled the girls on how to host an event in this episode. Now, she's easily one of my favorite housewives across the franchises, simply because she's iconic without trying. And trying she doesn't, because if she doesn't want to come to your girl's trip, she won't. If it gets too noisy, she checks out. Like, she doesn't have the time. And that's on top of being so blunt with the wildest deliveries of her shade. But I also wanted to talk about what exactly is the deal with her son? Now, this season, Mary has decidedly been more vulnerable than before, inviting the cameras to get a closer look into her real life and not always so glamorous world. One such key focus of her storyline revolves around her son, Robert Jr., the 19-year-old who has returned from college and now lives at home with his girlfriend. Now, there seems to be quite a lot going on there, especially as seen in the previous episode where Mary visited the young couple upstairs in the bedroom where they had been in bed the whole day, seemingly lazing, eating, and vaping. She talked to them about how worried she was about their state, expressing that she is concerned that they might not be ready for the real world out there because they're still acting like children. And the interesting connection here is that Mary has also earlier this season talked about how emotionally unavailable her mother was as children, and so she went the opposite direction to give her son everything she never got from her parents. The pastor has talked about how she understands that Robert Jr. may be sheltered and pins that down to her spoiling him and leaving him so codependent, but also that he's her reason for living. In a recent interview with Entertainment Tonight, Mary confirms that her son is on substances and struggles with feelings of not wanting to live. As seen in an emotional moment in the mid-season sneak peek, both Mary and Robert Jr. are seen breaking down, with Mary expressing how terrifying the idea of her losing him is. It's pretty intense, and in the interview, Mary goes on to reveal that while the situation has since gotten better, we are still yet to see some pretty intense lows later in the season. And of course, that she also does not approve of the girlfriend because their relationship has a toxic dynamic. That it definitely does, and they are both so young, literal teenagers. But yes, this, along with Angie's reflections recently, are some of the most substantive storylines this season. Yeah, what are your thoughts on all of this? Comment down below, like and share this video, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching until the end. Until next time, bye.